Hi, this is Mrs. Grella. I just wanted to go over the quadratic formula again, but do a problem where the quadratic is not in standard form originally. Let's just review how we would make it in standard form. Recall standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we would have to put this equation equal to 0 and also put it in the correct order. If you notice, this is in the correct order, x squared or d squared, then x, or in this case d, and then the constant, but it's not set equal to 0. So remember, to set it equal to 0, we did this in previous lessons before we learned completing the square. We would have to do the opposite of 5d squared, so that's negative 5d squared, to both sides. And I'm going to do it to the other side here because they're like terms. All right, so when I do 5d squared minus 5d squared, I get 0. And then when I do it to the other side, I have to combine like terms, so it's 2d squared, and then everything else comes down. So now my quadratic is in standard form, and I can actually solve it using my quadratic formula. All right, so here's the quadratic formula again. It's x equals negative b, or the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's first determine our a, b, and c. Here a is 2, b is negative 9, and c is 3. The reason why b is negative 9 is because the minus sign in front. All right, so when we're solving the equation now, it's x equals, so it's negative b, which is the opposite of b. Well, if b is negative already, the opposite of b is going to be a positive. So positive 9 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So I have to do negative 9 squared. In my calculator, I have to do it as negative 9 in parentheses squared. That's 81. It makes sense because negative 9 times itself. Do not put it like this. That's wrong, okay? So it would have to be positive 81. Whenever you square a number, it has to be positive. All right, so that's how you have to put it into the calculator. So it would be 81, right, because that's what b squared is, minus 4 times a times c. So let me fill that in. 4 times what times what? Well, a is 2, so 4 times 2 times c is 3, so 3. All right, so there's my b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So 2 times a. A was 2. All right. Once that's done, we have to figure out what's underneath the radical. So I'm going to basically take what's underneath this radical, and I'm going to put it into my calculator. So 81 minus 4 times a, which was 2, times c, which was 3. That gives me 57. So it's really radical 57 because that's what those numbers calculate to be. All over 2 times 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. I can either use my calculator or not for that, but I would definitely use my calculator for this part. It's just easier. Now, actually, that's my answer on Delta Math. All right, so when I'm looking at my Delta Math screen, remember what I would do first is the slash to create the fraction. I would do 9. Then I would do the plus or minus sign, the radical sign or the square root sign, 57, then down arrow to 4, and then that will give you your denominator, and that's what they're looking for, which is correct. All right, the radical, again, does not simplify. We'll go over that on another day. So your answer would be left like this. What this really means, remember, is that the exact values of your answer are irrational numbers. All right, because 57 is not a perfect square. So it really means 9 plus the square root of 57 over 4, or 9 minus, because that's what the plus or minus means. 9 minus square root of 57 over 4. Those are your exact answers. All right, that's what it means. There's 2 different answers. So this is just like a way of writing it one time, the plus or minus. It's a quick form of writing it. If I want my approximate values, which they ask you to do in another delta assignment, you would take the exact values from here and you would just put them into the calculator. So I'm going to take my 9 plus the square root of 57 over 4 and put it into my calculator. I need a fraction, so I'm going to do alpha y equals. All right, I have 9 plus the square root, so second x squared, 57 over 4. I'm going to figure out what that is. There's my first one. And then I'm going to do it for 9 minus, right? Because that's the other option. So I'm going to go back up here, hit enter, and then I'm just going to change the plus to a minus and go type right over it, the minus sign. See, it changes. And then that'll give me the value with the minus sign. So the value with the plus sign was approximately 4.1 if I'm rounding it to the nearest tenth. Depends what I'm rounding to. All right, it's 4.1 because it's 1 decimal place. The 3 makes it stay. If it's 5 or more, it rounds up. If I wanted it to the nearest hundredth, I would do like 13 or 14 here, and the 7 would make it go up to 4.14. But I'll stick with nearest tenth. Here I have 0.3 or 0.4. The 6 behind it makes it go up to a 0.4. So this other one would be 0.4. So then those would be my approximate values. 4.1 or 0.4. Those would be my two answers if they wanted the approximate values. But since they want the exact values, these are the answers, or I can even write it shorthand this on my Delta Math. If you have any more questions, please join the live sessions that are coming up this week, or just reach out to me and we can schedule something as well. Thank you.